The Culture Proof Conference is coming to Bartlett, Tennessee.
Man,
That is just outside of the
almost
Memphis
here.
area, and we are super excited about it. If you're not registered, now is the time to get registered. As you
Yes.
look at the protests that are breaking out all across this country, you've got people barricading themselves inside classrooms. You've got people setting up encampments and feeling like they're entitled to do it. Well, joining us is Dr. Renton Rathbun, and Dr. Rathbun is the director of the Biblical Worldview, the Center for Biblical Worldview at Bob Jones University. And, you know, as a secular professor, he encountered some of these kids who feel entitled, these kids who feel like they are only willing to defend their parents' religion in as much as it doesn't cost them anything. And he's going to be speaking to some of our young people at this conference. So if you've got early adult, young adult, what do you call working class adult, maybe they're not yet married, and don't have children, they're going to want to participate in this Culture Proof Conference. We're really excited that God has equipped us to respond to what is happening in the culture. So we hope that you'll go to the website, cultureproof.net, and learn more about the conference, see who's speaking, think about what some of those topics are, and whether or not you and your family will benefit from this.
Yeah, and don't forget about our children's track. You know, we know that they are making the decisions right now at the age that they are in to follow the Lord. You know, their biblical worldview is being shaped, their worldview is being shaped. And so we have a powerful children's track, teens track. You're not going to want to miss that. This is something for the whole family.
Yeah.
For the whole family. And we want to minister to the whole family. We understand that the world understands that children are needed to carry out what they desire for them to do. We know for the kingdom of God, God wants the children to be a part of what He's going to do in the earth as well. So go to cultureproof.net, cultureproof.net. Man, now is the time to register. Now is the time to register. Registration will be ending soon. And so you want to make sure that you go to cultureproof.net and get your tickets for the Culture Proof Conference.
We believe it's going to be an encouraging time for you and hundreds of other believers who will be on site at Faith Baptist Church in July 18th through the 20th. We want to see you there. As my husband said, cultureproof.net, cultureproof.net. Get registered and tell a friend. Thanks for checking out Culture Proof. It's time for the Friday News Haul. I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And this is becoming a fun part of what I feel like we do on the Culture Proof podcast. And I think people really enjoy it because, you know, we do kind of cover a lot of heavy topics, it seems like, you know, got to discuss what's going on in the world and how we can actively resist. It's nice to get to a Friday and just kind of have a collection of news stories that we just kind of work our way through. Some of them funny, some of them a little bit like, you know, I don't know, not funny, but just interesting.
Yeah.
Just things that kind of grab our attention.
That's right.
That we choose to have a conversation around. And so this Friday is going to be no different. We do have a Friday News Haul for you. But before we get into it, we want to say thanks so much to our premier sponsor, BJUPressHomeschool.com, our source for equipping our kids to stand in their generation. We want our kids to not only be launched out into the world, but we want them to be able to give a reasonable defense for the hope that lies within them. Of course, that is our responsibility in discipleship. BJUPressHomeschool.com comes alongside and undergirds all of our efforts, ensuring that the education they receive lines up with the conviction that we as their parents have. BJUPressHomeschool.com might be the curriculum for you. You won't know unless you go to BJUPressHomeschool.com and check it out. You can let them know that Will and Miki or the Addisons or your best friends online sent you.
Yes.
That's BJUPressHomeschool.com, the premier sponsors of the Culture Proof podcast. Please check them out. All right. So it is time to get into our Friday News Haul. Before we do that, is there anything that you feel like you want to say as we get to the end of the week? We talked a lot about radicals this week. And
all week seems
that
like
it
in some form.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy. Any takeaways for you? Anything that you feel like, man, you know?
No, I think those shows for me, the content was eye-opening.
Yeah.
You know, just some things that were discussed, and just a motivation to raise our children with a foundation that's sturdy and strong, you know, in God. And so, and if we don't do that, that there's a vacuum that happens, and in that space, that's where the radical ideas are,
Yeah.
formed.
Yeah.
And so I thought this week's shows were really impactful.
Yeah.
And even hearing from some of you, the listeners, you thought they were really well informed. You got
That
well
was
informed,
encouraging.
and encouraging shows. And so praise God for that. I thank God for the opportunity that we get to do this and open these mics. We don't take it for granted.
Mm-mm.
We really desire to minister effectively and to do His will as we look at these stories from a biblical perspective.
That's right. That's right. So I'm grateful for that as well. And I think when you get the feedback and you hear from some of our listeners saying, "Man, I really didn't know this history that you brought out," and then being able to connect it to what's happening currently, I feel like that's often our aim, to show the spiritual underpinnings of what's happening in culture.
Yeah.
But then if you can show even the longevity, if you will, of the enemy's attacks and how they're not new, these things have been going on for a long time. I feel like that is the sweet spot of what we try to do on Culture Proof. And so when that comes across, I'm really grateful for it. So anyway, I think that this week's shows, or, offerings, whatever, uploads, drops, episodes, I think that's going to be one kind of for our archives, because I feel like it's one of those things that it does take a little bit of extra work to dig up and discover those things and then present them, try to be a little bit systematic about it, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah,
I think
definitely worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yes. So I've got my coffee here, and I'm just going to hold it as a prop, because I feel like it just works for what I'm about to talk about, because we're getting into the news hall bit of this Friday. And I saw this article, and, people by now know what the news hall is. It's usually me just saving articles and then going back, and they don't fall into any one particular category. They're like a gumbo. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Friday.
Yeah.
Gumbo. Okay. Here we go. So this one was from the Wall Street Journal, and I have to say, okay, so I was a little bit upset in reading it, but it's one of those things where you're just like, this is outrageous. But it's a real thing. This is the headline that grabbed my attention. And then before long, everybody's going to know why. Okay. Why you may soon be drinking synthetic coffee. Let me just say, the devil is a liar. Okay. And when I was growing up in church, somebody would echo, and a deceiver too. Like, right. So no, we're not going to be drinking. And I feel like even as I say that, someone's like, check your cup, Mika, like check your cup. Anyway, so just as everything else in our culture has downgraded, and become a shabby version of its former self, coffee now is sort of in the crosshairs of that. And I want to share this article. But before I get into it, I want to acknowledge that you really don't care.
I mean,
they're not coming for tea.
Right. Not yet. Not yet. But coffee, that's your thing. I know a little Timmy might be upset about this as well.
My Timmy loves coffee.
I don't know why, but anyway.
We had to, can I just say, we had to stop him actually trying to brew a pot of coffee. And I do want to acknowledge that there is a reason for that. I do share coffee with him in the morning. His is more cream than coffee, if I could just say. It really is. But for him, it's like that. I don't know. I think he just feels like he's a part. And so this is becoming a part of our morning tradition. Well, yesterday, day before, I don't know, some point this week, I walk in and he has already begun the process of like rinsing out the coffee pot. Like he is getting ready. He's going through the process that he sees me go through to brew a pot of coffee. And I had to say to him at 3, you're not allowed to brew coffee. Like what kind of kid?
Oh my goodness.
Just brews coffee. And then anyway, so yeah, Timmy and we're ready to protest. Oh no, I'm not raising a radical. We as long as we're on the same side of the line, I feel like then let's go, right? Here's the you might be raising a radical if you jeopardize their coffee. Okay.
Right.
Here we go. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Oh my goodness. So upsetting. Your typical morning cup of coffee is a social and environmental disaster. I love how it starts with doom and gloom to say that every time I take a sip of this beautiful, naturally occurring, coffee, okay, that I'm destroying the world. Like that's a lot of weight on me. I feel like just in the morning, right out of the gate. I feel like that's a lot of weight to know that I am the oppressor because I'm drinking coffee. Okay. But that's what the Wall Street Journal wants me to understand. So back to the article, your typical morning cup of coffee is a social and environmental disaster, but you'll soon have the option to start sipping something less harmful. So now I get to be, a hero.
Yeah.
And then they say synthetic coffee.
So this for the environment type thing. That's what this is. You don't care about your
Stop. Don't before you even finish that question. You don't care about let me tell you.
The earth, environment.
Listen, I believe, okay, fine. Since you want to go there, I believe that the world and everything in it is made by God. And I believe that it is sustained and held together by God. Okay. I believe that in Jesus, all things exist and are held together. And I believe part of my stewardship is to partake of the coffee bean, allow some hot water to run over those jokers.
Okay.
My goodness. Okay. Splash in a little bit of cream. Okay. I believe that is me, being a faithful steward of what God has so richly. And when I say rich, I mean dark and rich and hot. Okay, has provided what God has richly provided for us. I don't feel guilty about drinking coffee at all. I love coffee.
So you gotta tell us like what the harm is
of what
of drinking
synthetic coffee.
No. What are they saying? Like why?
I'm sorry. I just kind of like I lost myself.
Calm down. Oh my goodness.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I totally went like, take my earrings out. Like I'm sorry.
I'm sure people are like, well, why? What's wrong with coffee the way we drink it?
Well, because, I'm sorry. I just assumed that everyone would know that this is a ridiculous story. And so I didn't think I needed to go into detail about why this is
ridiculous. They just want to know like we knew something was wrong with coffee.
First of all, let me say this. Okay. You've got people around here seeking out organic cotton. Okay, because they don't want to wear synthetic fabrics. And now we're saying we're going to do to coffee what we've done to meat. Like it's going to be coffeeless coffee. Like you have meatless burgers. Like this is ridiculous to me. Okay, but I will read the article because your inquiring mind wants to know. Yeah. And so I will read the article. Okay, worldwide, here's what the Wall Street Journal says. Man,
Wall Street Journal, they're reputable, right? They're Proceed.
Okay. Worldwide, people consume 2 billion cups of coffee a day. All right. The world runs on Dunkin'. That's a fact. Okay. Here we go. Given that the average Arabica tree produces only 1 to 2 pounds of coffee a year, that means that every 2 cup a day coffee drinker requires continuous production from around 20 coffee trees.
How many cups do you drink? When you feel that thing, it seems like there's quite a bit.
Listen.
How many scoops?
This article is not about me.
8, 9,
okay,
10.
Please. This article is not about me. All right. All I want to say is that 2 cups a day is only what people say. Okay. Because any real coffee drinker is really working his or her way through more than 2 cups a day. And here's the thing though. And I think most of my coffee drinking comrades will understand this. Okay.
Why you've been saying comrades lately since this radical.
Oh my goodness. Have I been using that term a lot?
I've been noticing you've been saying comrade. I'm
I'm being radicalized.
Man, I'm just saying.
Oh my goodness. When have you heard me say that?
I think if we look back on yesterday's show or one other show, you said
that was
comrade.
Necessary.
No. It wasn't in the context of them saying that. It was in the context of you saying it about somebody else or something. It was just something that you just said.
Scared me.
It was something you said.
Okay.
Just like what you just said.
Okay, first
of all,
my
coffee drinking comrades.
You're scaring me.
From Cuba.
Oh, stop.
I mean,
we have to be so careful with the content we consume because it does change the way you communicate.
Comrade is not a bad word.
It's really not, but it's not a part of my lexicon.
No, you never really.
It's not a part of my lexicon.
Like some radical.
It really does. Okay, you've made your point, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid of me right now. I'm afraid that I'll be down at the next picket line somewhere. The fight for 15 in
justice,
Mississippi.
No peace.
Wow. Well, I mean, if coffee's involved, if they're trying to take
No coffee,
coffee,
no peace. Oh, see,
don't make me show
that's
up
why you
on
have
the
to have
front
your
line.
mind girded up. You got to have
Yeah.
it, because these things.
You're right.
No, go ahead.
No,
but
you're absolutely
proceed.
right. I mean, is there not a cause? And coffee is not one of them. Okay, so yeah. All right. So here we go.
Yes.
This article. But by the way, I am noting what you said about my lexicon. Okay. Because right when you said that, I thought, man, I have really truly been consuming a lot of content from radicals. And so I don't like,
oh my goodness.
I feel
You
like
got
in
like
the,
a black shirt on. But it
Oh
said
my
Christ
God.
privilege or Christ privilege, not any other privilege. So
don't
that's
be
good.
concerned. Hold on a second,
This-
Bill. Don't be concerned that I'm wearing a black shirt. You be concerned the next podcast episode and I have on a daishiki.
Ooh.
That's when you should be. If I start to throw out my hair, then you're like, oh no, they got her. Like if that's anyway, let's just take a moment to process what Will the Great is saying here. Because stop. You don't keep saying it. Okay. Back to the coffee.
Okay, back to the coffee.
Let me change my tone here because I do believe now that you're saying that I could hear quite the militant tone in my conversation
you were pretty
about
upset
coffee.
too. You like just saying.
The people have been oppressed for too long. We've had our genuine, actual things taken away. And so we're not going to stand for it anymore. So I'm here to say, no, I'm kidding. I just need to process that. I'll do it once we're done with the podcast because we don't have enough time for people to hear.
Yes, you process.
Right, exactly. All right, back to the Wall Street Journal. The intense demand for coffee has driven mass deforestation, poverty wages for farmers who see little of the rising prices for their commodity, and substantial carbon emissions due to both production and long supply chains. Research suggests that around half of the land best suited for growing coffee will be unsuitable for that purpose by 2050, thanks to climate change.
See.
So now, my question is this: why are they trying to give us fake coffee?
Yeah, right.
Because we spend so much time talking about me as a revolutionary. I don't even have enough time to go into more of this article. We'll probably need to post a link to it in the podcast episode because it is interesting to look at. They talk about, what would be the obstacle to getting people to drink fake coffee, and it's going to be the taste. And so they say if you can make it taste like coffee, then people are going to drink it. And they say most of what people enjoy about coffee is not the actual coffee bean. It's the process that is used to make it what you actually get in your cup. And I would agree with that because I'm not going to just like chew on a coffee bean.
Ew.
Right, exactly. So I would agree with that. But I do think the same argument, they say, if you can make it taste like meat. No, but only meat is meat. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I just feel like, only coffee is coffee. I don't want to drink, some sort of manufactured coffee that then I'm just to tell my brain that it's actually a coffee bean. By the way, they are using the same argument with the cocoa bean. So your chocolate is now, running the risk of being compromised. And one of the things that they say that is that when people made the switch to margarine, because of the scarcity of butter, which they say no one bristled. Everybody just accepted margarine. But I will say this, there have been recent moves for people to get back to what is natural and what is organic. And I think people want butter now. I don't use margarine. I remember using margarine growing up, but I wouldn't use that today. Right. You think about the hydrogenated oils and all of that stuff that we're told, don't consume that. It's not good for your body. Your body doesn't know what to do with it because it's not real. And then all of a sudden we say, let's just keep making more of that. And I mean that literally. Let's keep making more of these things that our bodies don't know what to do with. Yeah. And because of that, we're like all slowly dying.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Anyway.
You're right, comrade.
Stop it. I'm not, look, I am totally taking note of what you said. And I want to be very careful about what you said because that is the phrase or the term that is used and thrown around. And it's also brother and sister. Now I use that brother and sister.
They got that from.
Yes, but I'm just saying that's another one that is thrown around. But comrades is absolutely one. Because it's like people in a battle together. It's
like Che Guevara.
Stop. Okay. If you could please not What I want to
understand.
say is that my research is over. So hopefully I can return. It's like I went undercover to investigate. You know how sometimes you have to plunge yourself into these roles?
Yes.
Good grief. Anyway, again, if next week there's even one podcast episode where I'm wearing like a beret or something and like an armband, please unsubscribe. Okay. Because it's just not going to be good for anybody.
Oh, man.
Anyway, no, man, it's there. We can do some other podcast about what I listen to.
Yeah, I think people want to know.
Yeah. Scary stuff though. Truly scary stuff. And the fallout from that time, the militant revolutionary time in this country. Of course, I wasn't born. I was born near the end of that. When the children of the revolutionaries were born is around the time that you and I were born.
Yeah.
And so anyway, just really fascinating stuff. But I do want to be careful about what I consume and how that shapes who we are. All right. Shall we move on? Unless
Let's
you have
move
more
on.
mocking.
No, I'm good.
All right.
Maybe
I
later
feel like
in the show.
Oh, okay. I feel like I put myself on the front line, for you and for these people, for you people. I put myself on the front lines and then you mock me, like it's hurtful. It's hurtful. And that's what causes a revolutionary.
Wow. Okay. All right. Next story.
All right, here we go. This headline from Newsweek, I thought this was really interesting, and I'm curious to know what you think. The headline that grabbed me: selfish 16-year-old refusing to use prize money to help struggling family is praised on the internet. Now, it's not that she is praised, and it's not that she would be condemned. My question, I just want to know what you think the right parental expectation would be of the 16-year-old.
Prize money. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, right? Okay, that's the background. So a 16-year-old girl's refusal to give her father and stepmother any of the money she won has been backed by the internet. The girl took to Reddit, posting as Most Plenty 3578 to explain how she had entered her town's annual raffle. Her pregnant stepmother also entered the raffle and won a food and wine hamper, like a gift basket or something like that, and told the family that she was keeping this gift basket to herself because she deserves something nice because she's pregnant and the family's been having money troubles. Well, a couple of days later, the 16-year-old girl found out that she had also won in the town's rally or raffle a $1,000 gift card.
Okay.
After spending much of it on personal items like shoes, perfume, and makeup, I mean, she's 16, right?
Right.
She posted on social media about her win and the things she had bought. Well, after that, her father learned about what she won and how she spent the money, and he contacted her and was not happy. So apparently this girl spends time between her mom's home and her father's home, where there is also a stepmom. Okay. So she wrote on Reddit, quote, "Dad called me and told me I was selfish and cruel to buy myself unnecessary items while I knew they were struggling. Stepmom then got on the phone and asked how much I had left. So I said $280. She then asked, would I return my stuff or at the very least give them the rest of the gift card so that they could purchase stuff for the baby who is on the way, because I knew they were struggling. I said no, just like her gift basket. It was mine to keep." So without going into too much detail, because it does say that the stepmom started crying and telling her how selfish she was. And then the dad ultimately says, maybe you should not come over for a while until this kind of blows over. So my question to you is, what's your take on this? Like, I have some thoughts, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess initially I understand the 16-year-old, feeling, especially being a 16-year-old. I can see how they be like, hey, well, you kept your basket, I'm keeping my whatever, my money. But man, I would hope we are raising our children in such a way that it seemed like there's some, like you said, some family dynamics there.
Yeah.
So that adds to it. Like there's some dysfunction there, like something's going on. So with that in mind, I could see how she may not feel like obligated to do anything for, her dad and his, wouldn't it be his wife?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, her stepmom. That's right.
But at the same time, I would hope we are raising children that would be outward focused and would understand, what's going on, and would at least offer, hey, I would, give some of this, or
Yeah.
do you need anything from this?
I actually do know some kids who have done that.
Mhm.
Most recently, learning about um, an individual whose family was struggling, and excuse me, this individual um, was able to help the family and
Mhm.
did, as a younger person.
Mhm.
So I do think that that character trait can be there
Yeah,
and
it
should be
can be
there.
there.
At the same time, though, I don't think that the family should compel
No.
this 16-year-old to do
So
that.
I
What
think
are
the
your thoughts
dad
on that?
I think the dad is wrong in the way that he contacted her,
Yeah.
and seemed like the tone was like that he was upset, and you're so,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. I think that was the wrong way to go about it, and so for him to put on her an obligation to, like, you need to help us. You bought all that silly stuff, that's
Yeah, but
pretty
she's
bad.
16. I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like that's what a 16-year-old would do. I feel
right.
like that's what a
I agree.
16-year-old would do, even if you don't train them how to spend money or how to save money that they earn. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? I think that 16-year-olds think about kind of what's here and now. And so I
Yeah.
could see her buying, clothes and shoes and makeup. She's 16. And I don't see that as like and tell me what you think about this, but
Mhm.
I don't necessarily see that as a malicious act on her part.
Not at all. I don't see it that way either. I think, like you said, she's 16. That's the type of things that I would expect
Yeah.
her to purchase, and
Yeah.
not in a way that I'm gonna get this in light of me having this money. I'm not gonna give you any
Yeah.
like that. It's just what she would buy.
Yeah.
So I think the dad was a little harsh on
Yeah.
how they approached her, and the stepmom, whatever,
Yeah.
that's not the way.
And to your point, I do think there's something to be said about raising the type of child who would say, "Hey, I won this prize money,
Mhm.
and I know that you guys, you're in a rough spot, and so
Mhm.
I would like to give you some of this money
Mhm.
to help with some of your expenses right now." I think that is a character trait
It is.
that has to be
It
discipled
is.
into
It's
a
something
kid.
that's not a natural thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Naturally what would be done, even for, like, not, I'm not speaking of a bad kid, but
Right,
naturally
right.
what would be done is what she did.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, wow, I
Like
got
that's
money.
the default setting.
But I think there can be a discipleship process or character traits built in children to where they would think outwardly first.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking
Yeah.
of children, let me just remind our listeners that we do have the Culture Proof Conference coming up July
Yes.
18th through the 20th that has a teens track. And so if you want to work on your teens character, not saying that there's going to be a $1,000 rally or anything
Right,
like that or
right.
raffle, but there is an opportunity to make sure that you are defending the faith and teaching your kids how to defend the faith. That's one of the things that we are most excited about, that this is a conference that is, intergenerational. We want to see grandparents there and parents
Mhm.
and children from the ages of 4 on up to 18. And I give those ages because those are the kids who can participate in the track because it's actual lessons.
Yeah,
And so we
yeah.
don't have there's no babysitting in
That's
the
right.
classes. Even for our 6-year-olds and our 4-year-olds,
Mhm.
they are actually learning how to defend the faith. And
That's
so
right.
if you want to be a part of that, you want to be equipped, you want to come and be our comrades, you can go to just kidding. You can go to cultureproof.net, click on the conference link. You
Mhm.
can learn about the other speakers and learn about the location, and any other questions that you have, you can then reach out to us, also available through our website, cultureproof.net.
Yes.
All right. So
Cultureproof.net.
anything else about this
No,
16-year-old?
no, that's interesting though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Okay, so then let's move on. I
Mhm.
was fascinated by this.
Okay.
So many people would be familiar with the late great composer Beethoven,
Yes.
and many people would probably be loosely familiar with the details of his kind of progressively losing his
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah.
But there was some new research that was presented as to why Beethoven lost his hearing. And this was in the article The Times. And I was fascinated because whenever you can pull samples of people's hair,
That's amazing that you can do that and figure out what
like
what's
what
happened in their
caused
body.
their deafness,
Yeah.
right? And so they did, and they had some samples of locks, and were able to figure out, or at least speculate
Yeah.
why they think that Beethoven ultimately went deaf. And they say lead poisoning.
Mm.
Yeah. So it turns out that there was a lot of lead consumption that was able to be observed or what's the word I'm looking for? Discovered in the locks of Beethoven's hair. Here's the article from the Times. Beethoven tried at first to keep his deafness secret. Quote, "If I had any other profession," he wrote, "I might be able to cope with my infirmity, but it is a terrible handicap. And if my enemies, of whom I have a fair number, were to hear about it, what would they say?" But everyone knew. By the end, when Beethoven was ostensibly leading an orchestra, one musician described how he, quote, "threw himself back and forth like a madman. He flailed about with his hands and feet as though he wanted to play all the instruments. The actual conductor had warned them to ignore him." In other words, here he is as the composer, but his whole body is involved in what's going on. And it's almost like his attempt to compensate for not being able to hear. So here's the question the article asks: how did one of the world's finest composers lose the ability to hear his compositions? A new analysis provides strong backing for a long-mooted culprit, lead poisoning. Now you may be wondering, well, I don't know what you may be wondering. Let me just stop there and ask a question. Are you wondering anything at this moment? And then I could tell you what I
am. I'm
Okay.
I don't know if the answer is there. I'm just wondering, how did so much lead get into his system? Like
Yes.
what he drinking, eating certain things? What was he, that caused this to be so pronounced in his system that they can see it in his hair like all these years later,
So this is probably, what is it? His ninth symphony, I think it's what it's called, but many people would be familiar with like Ode to Joy. And so that's what is playing in the background while we have this conversation. So here, one of the big questions that I had while reading this article was how they would have known that it was Beethoven's hair. Like, did they have like some sort of like keepsake box?
That's what I think. That's what I thought initially, that they kept, famous people, they'll try to keep stuff, like, I don't know. I think they took it and kept it in a box or something.
Yes, that is quite possible.
That's what I think.
Okay, so what I'll do, let me just go ahead, because that may be a little bit distracting, not only for people, but also for myself.
I mean, some people will be like,
it's amazing. Okay,
that.
Let's do this. Here we go. Because you can show up on YouTube just to see the conductor. He's got the conductor hair. There we go. We love it. Yes.
Nice.
All right. Very good. Okay. Very good. Okay. So back to this article. A team of researchers has managed to obtain validated samples of the composer's hair. Researcher Nadir Rifai from Harvard Medical School said that when they sent the locks for analysis, the guy said he had never seen anything like that. The levels of lead are about 90 times what we would normally see in normal people. Wow. The only comparable example they could think of in a modern sample came from people in villages in Ecuador, where the only industry for them came from glazing tiles using lead from batteries. And then this researcher says, quote, "When you look at their kids, they have a short stature, mental delays, and they also," he said, "have hearing loss." And so when they sampled this hair and confirmed that its DNA was linked back to Beethoven, they found that the presence of lead in his hair samples just was overwhelming. And so then the question would be, so where did this lead come from?
Right.
He had a high fish diet, and the fish that was taken from the Danube, where there was waste and a lot of lead poisoning to that river, they said would have gotten into his system. Also, he was a heavy wine drinker, which they would sweeten the wine with lead. And then also they would use the wine to bring a clarity to the glasses that they drank. Use the lead to bring a clarity to the glasses they drank from. And so anyway, it turns out, as in reading this article and even some of the research that you were reading about Beethoven, that he was told that he should not drink as much as he did drink, but not just because of what ultimately happened. He died of cirrhosis of the liver.
That's right.
Fairly young.
Yeah, 56.
That's really young.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it turns out that he was poisoning himself with lead.
Wow.
I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's like, again, it's crazy that you can discover that from
Hair samples.
examining hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was known to be one of the greatest composers of all time.
Yeah.
You know, he was Mozart was impressed by him.
That's crazy.
And so yeah, he was a great
Crazy.
composer. And it's amazing to me, because I was wondering, I was like, man, when did he go deaf? Because how can you even compose music if you? But it was a gradual thing.
Yeah.
That happened over time, and his family, he come from a family of musicians. You know, so this was something like that was in the family line, that he would become a musician.
That, though.
Yeah,
I feel like it's usually like that the Lord entrusts gifts and various abilities in families, like a family unit. And you can see how their ability to steward that gift allows for it to continue to pass down through generations.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's also said that his dad was given over to alcoholism. You know.
Wow.
Which is,
very sad.
Very sad.
A lesson of another sort, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's end on a high note here, because I came across this video and I thought, oh man, this is so good. One of our kids' absolute favorite content creators or favorite YouTubers is a YouTuber by the name of Zach King. And Zach King has a YouTube channel with over 31 million followers. And he just produces the kind of content that you enjoy watching. We don't feel, fear when we consume his content, because he's built our trust over the years.
Yeah.
But I want to also say this, over the years, our kids have said, man, I really feel like he's a Christian. They've watched some of the behind the scenes of his content. I know that he and his wife had some fertility issues, and Zach King was very open about that. And so sharing those videos with our kids, we were able to observe something different in him. Well, recently he had the opportunity to address the graduating class of Biola University, the private Christian university in California. And I did not know this, but Zach King is also a graduate of Biola University. He graduated in 2012 and was not actually accepted to the film school that they have there. And so he talked a little bit about that in his commencement address to the 2024 graduating class. So I thought it'd be really cool just to play some snippets of his speech. One of the things I want to do is play the introduction. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. If you're listening, it won't have the same effect, maybe. But nevertheless, here we go.
Biola alumnus, digital creator, filmmaker, father, and husband, Zach King, class of 2012. A little bit about Zach. Zach has been making films, experimenting with media sleight of hand and entertaining people since he was a child. During one summer as a Biola student, Zach King went viral with a video called Jedi Kittens, a short video that would be among the first of his created clips that made him into the beloved short-form filmmaker that he is today. Given the fact that CMA graduates are graduating tonight, and he is a CMA graduate, in the true Jedi spirit, let me say today's date, May the 4th be with you.
That's great.
I have the higher ground. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our 2024 commencement speaker, our own Biola graduate, Zach King.
So you'll just have to go over, if you want to see what that snippet looks like, you'll just have to go over to our YouTube channel. You can see that, or you can go over to Biola University's YouTube channel and watch the entire speech, which I highly recommend. There's this whole Star Wars exchange that happens, which I'm not sure how many commencement speakers actually have that kind of introduction.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
It was epic, right?
Yeah,
It
it was
seemed,
epic.
it seemed to
Yeah.
be something that would be consistent with who Zach King is. We watched this video with our big three because they're huge fans of Zach King, but there was the meat of the commencement address that I thought was really good and really encouraging. And I want to share just a small piece of that and then encourage you, because so often we get questions. People will say, well, what do you watch with your kids? You know, who do you trust on YouTube? And Zach King is one of those YouTubers that we have grown to trust because we have seen consistent in his videos. We don't have to be afraid that he is going to say something or do something that is going to cause some kind of conflict, not only for us or our children, but just, you know, as parents and trying to disciple, we don't want to be working against our efforts. And so when you find content creators like that,
You gotta, yeah. And Dude Perfect, I think they
Dude Perfect would be another one. Yeah.
But yeah,
That we appreciate them. Okay, so here we go. This is just a little snippet of what Zach King had to say. Really super encouraging.
I like how a wise philosopher once put it. This is what Yoda said. In this war, a danger there is of losing who we are. Graduates, you've had some incredible professors over the years who have poured into your life. Professor Joanne Jung had a big impact on my life. I saw you over there, Professor Jung. You're gonna make me cry. In her class, we memorized Colossians 3, which we had the scripture reading. It stayed with me all these years. Because you were raised with Christ, set your minds on things above, not on things on the earth. Over the next few weeks, you guys are gonna have an incredible time. People are gonna come up to you, they're gonna congratulate you. They're gonna say, congrats, the world is your oyster. And that's awesome if you don't have a shellfish allergy. But just remember, you guys, that the world, the things that are here, they're not forever. Set your mind on things above and remember who you are. You guys are Eagles. To the class of Biola 2024, you are Eagles. Remember it. Don't forget it. So fly like Eagles.
That was so good. You know, he went on and there was so much more. But of course, if you want to see all of it, you can just go to Biola's YouTube channel and watch the entire commencement speech. It has all of the elements, right? It's funny, it's serious, it's weighty. It's also personal. He talks about some of the rejection that he suffered, but then how the Lord used all of that to ultimately bring him to where he is today and creating the kind of content that our family gets to consume and, you know, not be afraid of. So anyway, I thought that was really neat.
no, it is. And, you know, it's awesome to see someone who has had so much success, you know, just giving honor to God. You
Amen.
know?
Unafraid and unapologetically. Yeah.
And so that was awesome to see.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have, unless there's something that you have that you want to throw out at me.
No, comrade.
Oh, stop it. We'll talk about this. Once we stop the episode, we will talk about it, because look, as soon as you said that, I was like, look, why am I doing a fist? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Out to the people.
Stop it. That's not the thing. But as soon as you said that, I thought, man, you know, I have been consuming a lot of this content, listening to it, trying to kind of sift through it in my mind. So anyway, I'll take note of that and be careful not to join any protests or buy any berets.
We got to resist those cultural trends that rival the truth.
And remain culture proof. Until next time, Lord willing.
God bless.